Okay, I don't know anything about this other than that they were speaking about the Kolbrin Bible, which was virtually the same as, well, it wasn't the same, it was like a parallel Bible. Let me see what they have to say here. Now, this is the Kolbrin Bible, the secrets within it revealed. It's called a parallel Bible. It's just like the Book of Enoch, the Dead Sea Scrolls, all that stuff was omitted from the Bible because it was just too unbelievable. Kolbrin was protected by Chaldeans, saved before the burning of Glastonbury Monastery in Scotland, and then it was sent to New Zealand. And this author says, I was particularly interested in the timing, trying to establish a timeline. What seems to have emerged is that the major Earth changes, the 3 days of darkness for the northern hemisphere, with sunrise west for a few days, comes just ahead of the rotation stoppage and the pole shift. Velikovsky talks all about these things now. All within weeks, all of that stuff happened just like that. 3 days of darkness, pole shifts, sunrise in the west for a few days instead of in the east. Compare the sequence of events described in the Kolbrin to what is occurring today. Now, this is some Korean site, and it goes back to 2015. So it's not like today he's writing this. He wrote all this about the Kolbrin Bible. And it says, wisdom from the ancients. Now, don't forget, the Kolbrin Bible was, I don't know if it talks about it later, but it was 3,600 years ago. It was written. Now, newly revealed Egyptian Celtic wisdom text offers the knowledge of those who survived the past global catastrophes so that we could live, but we didn't pay attention. Thousands of years ago, Egyptian and Celtic authors recorded prophetic warnings for the future and their harbinger signs, and are now converging on these times. And then again, this was 8 years ago now. It says, these predictions are contained in the Kolbrin Bible, a secular wisdom text. It's a wisdom text that was studied in the days of Jesus and lovingly preserved by generations of Celtics mystics in Great Britain. Now, it's nearly as big as the King James Bible. This is a gigantic book. 3,600-year-old text. 3,600 years, that's the key here. It warns of an imminent Armageddon-like conflict with radical Islam. But this is not the greatest threat. And Islam and Christianity and everybody's got their own little idea of religion. And there is some pretty serious conflicts going on, as we're seeing right now. So he says, the authors of the Kolbrin Bible predicted an end to life as we know it by a celestial event. 3,600 years ago, it almost wiped out Earth, and it's coming up every 3,600 years. This planet, a massive object with a long elliptical orbit around our sun, known as to the Egyptians and the Hebrews as the Destroyer. The Celts later called it the Frightener. Every 3,600 years it comes by and apparently attacks Earth. Now listen to this. This is the thing that blew me away when I read this. This just knocked my socks off. It says, when blood drops upon the earth, the destroyer will appear. Mountains will open up and belch forth fire and ashes. Trees will be destroyed and all living things engulfed. Waters will be swallowed up by the land, and seas will boil. Now, this is 8 years ago, and this was before I had come to my conclusion that the oceans had boiled, although Velikovsky had reported that the seas did boil. He recorded it was a hot... I don't really know how he interpreted it, to be perfectly honest with you, but it was almost a collision with Venus that basically boiled the oceans and created the mudfossils. That's what I take away from it. Now, he claimed there was all kind of cataclysms on Earth, and there was. The blood ran, like they said, the blood drops upon the Earth. Now, this was, according to Velikovsky, was when Venus was born from the feared god Jupiter, and it hit Earth almost. and caused our flood and burnt up our atmosphere and destroyed everything and caused all the silicates to come to the surface and create the mud fossils out of the giants that were all over. That's a hair follicle from a giant creature. I don't know what it was, but that's the pilia retractor muscle, and this is the sebaceous gland. That's the root. That's the shaft. And I've showed this 100 times. Nobody can deny what this is. And these things can be tested. It's not like I'm just showing something that can't be tested. And I've had my stuff DNA tested, so I know there was giants on the earth. I've done my homework. Now I want to see what they had written in the past. And these things that are showing up here are just, and they all boil together into one soup of truth that was these ancient texts. And they were called mythology. And Apollodorus is the one that absolutely blows my mind, because Apollodorus talks about Typhon, and he talks about Zeus and the giants, and that Zeus killed all the giants, destroyed them with thunderbolts, and Hercules shot him with arrows, and that's just all insanity, crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. Then he says, when the gods, who are the gods, had overcome the giants, who were the children, they were the kids of Earth, but they were monsters. Earth was enraged. Earth was, because they killed all their kids. Earth was enraged and had intercourse with Tartarus and brought forth Typhon to wipe out the gods. And he attacked the gods. He was so huge, and I show him in the desert. He's just absolutely gigantic. And his head would often brush the stars. And he went right for the very heavens and tried to kill them all. He was going to kill all the giants. He was spitting a jet of fire from his mouth. The gods saw him rushing at heavens. They made for Egypt in flight. They were pursued by them. They changed their forms into those of animals. All right? And Zeus killed Typhon. But in the same time, Typhon attacked the fish in the desert. Shown that 1,000,000 times. Nobody can dispute that either. So these things are, this was written as true. And these are all the stories of our ancient past. The birth of Zeus, the war of the Titans, Olympian gods, war of the giants and Typhon, Prometheus, who molded man out of mud. Deucalion was Prometheus' son, who was Noah, was told by Prometheus, build yourself a chest, put all your provisions in there, get ready, you're going to have a flood. So Prometheus must have known this was going to happen. And I have so much on this now, it's very hard to dismiss that this could very, very, very well have been reality, even though it's just insane. And this is all about Hercules, the 12 labors of Hercules, and all of the different gods and moons and the wars, the Trojan Wars, the Odyssey. So these things that everybody's always thought was just poets, they call them. Oh, they were ancient poets. No. This is from the 2nd century BC, Apollodorus wrote. But he was writing things that were spoken of by Hesiod, who was the first really true writer. And he wrote things that were told to write. He was told to write by the daughters of Zeus. So Zeus was here at that particular time, or very close to that time, because these were his daughters. And they met Hesiod on Mount Helicon as he was out doing his sheep herding. And they said to him, we want you to write a book about our fathers, about our history, and specifically about Zeus, to bolster him up. And he said, I can't write. And they said, oh, yes, you can. And they gave him a magical rod. And he wrote the whole history and every little detail. I mean, the details are stunning. Stunning. All right, so this is Hesiod. And he goes back to somewhere around 700 BC. He's literally the earliest writer that wrote the new information after the flood, basically. And he was talked to by, he says that he himself attributes his poetic gifts to the muses who appeared to him while he was tending his sheep, giving him a poet's staff and endowing him with a poet's voice. They asked him, sing of the race of the blessed gods, immortal. Remember that, immortal. They're still here somewhere. That his epics won renown during his lifetime is shown by his participation in the contest of songs at the funeral games on the island of Eubosus. This, he says, was the only occasion on which he crossed the sea, but it is not likely to have been the only invitation he received from places other than his hometown. He was well known at this time. These were genuine works by Hesiod, and when you see what he wrote, it's all about these. He wrote theogony, the myths of the gods, works and days. All right, and this was about works and days is just basically about how there was two classes of people. There was the workers, and there was the gods, and this was how they lived their daily life as servants and so forth. And here's, basically he's talking about, how days went by, how they worked, and what the days were like. And the other one, the theogony, was the birth of the gods and Gaia and all of that stuff. And very, very deep stuff. And these were the muses, which were the daughters of Zeus. So Zeus had to be around very close to that time, and that's only 800 BC. And he was the god that was being worshipped. And as far as I can determine, we're going to get into Revelations too. Because did Revelations already happen, or is it going to happen in the future? Well, I have my own opinion on that, which you will hear, I can guarantee you. Okay, so you saw about Hesiod. He wrote all kinds of stuff. Now, Ovid was at the time of Julius Caesar, basically around the time of Christ. And he took everything that Hesiod wrote and Apollodorus wrote and Plato and all the rest of them. And he combined it into his work, which was called Metamorphosis. And he also talks about the birth of the world, the Creator separating the earth from heaven, sea from land, lighter air from heavier air. He made beings to inhabit these spaces. Gods and stars filled the heavens, fishes the seas, beasts the land, and birds the air. Then he goes on to Metamorphosis that talks about how the gods could morph themselves into anything they wanted, and they did, and they turned other creatures into the landscape. Okay, so I have made my statements about Ovid and his work, which was Metamorphosis, and this is it. Basically, this is it, all of these books. The creation, how did everything start? The ages of mankind, the Golden Age, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the flood. Everybody know, I've heard the flood. Deucalion, who was Noah, because this is the Greek, and his wife Pyrrha, Apollo, Daphne, and then he goes down through all of the ancient gods. The daughters of Minos transformed, the sun in love. I mean, this is just crazy, insane stuff. But he does say something that resonates with me very seriously. And get all the way up to number 15 here. It's up to the time of Julius Caesar. Now, here's what he said. Listen to this. Metamorphosis is a transformation amongst the episodes of Metamorphosis. It's the unifying theme. All right. Ovid raises its significance explicitly in the opening lines. In the first couple of lines, he says, "In nova fert animus mutatus desera formos corpora." I intend to speak of forms changed into new entities, in quotation marks. That's what he said. Accompanying the theme is violence inflicted upon a victim whose transformation becomes part of the natural landscape, which is the giants. They're all over the place. This theme amalgamates the much-explored opposition between hunter and hunted. They hunted them and turned them into the landscape. And the tension between art and nature. And they're seeing it in a little different way. They're sort of looking at this as a work of, just writing, and not that it relates to reality. Right? There's a great variety among the types of transformations. Listen to this. They could make themselves into anything they want. They could turn themselves into humans and then into inanimate objects like the Nile River or constellations or animals or plants. Then they can go from animals into ants and fungi and mushrooms back into humans again. They could change from one sex to another, from one color to another, like little pebbles. The metamorphoses themselves were often located metatextually. They're saying it was just sort of he was playing around with you. It's more absurdity and so forth. No, he was talking about what these gods actually could do. And they came down here as human, really hot-looking guys to have sex with all the women. And Zeus was the leader of them all. And it appears to be that he's the one that God, or whoever was writing the ancient text, said there was one against God, and he took 200 other watchers. There were supposed to be 600 watchers, which were the angels dispensed here to watch over humanity and take care of them from the big God. And I have my ideas now who the big God was, who the rest of them are, and I think I'm coming pretty close to understanding what was written. But 200 of them out of the 600 said, these women look really good. Let's go down there and have sex and go crazy with them. And they took Mount Olympus as their place to hang out. And they came down there and converted themselves into human-like forms, the same size as the women. And they were very, very attractive. And they had sex with all the women. Zeus was a serial rapist. He was a lech. He went after everybody. And he had sex with all kinds of women. And then they had all kinds of monsters and kids because of the DNA from the giants, even though they were converted down to a small person so they could have sex. When the babies were born, they just turned into giants. And I mean giants. And that's why Enoch was banned from the Bible, because he was talking about 2.5 mile tall giants. And that is not exceptionally tall. All right, let me just show you something. I show this all the time because it works very easily. This is a hair follicle. Now, you know how big your hair follicles are. You pull a hair out, there's a little tiny thing on the end of it. Well, that's quite a bit bigger. That right there is where this muscle attaches. It's the erector pili muscle. Your hair could stand up on end. That right there is the sebaceous gland, and that is the root ball. And that's where the hair comes out the top. It has a flat side, so it was a curly-haired person. And it has the vein and artery down here. Now, this is quite large, and this is nowhere near the size of the biggest things that I have discovered on Earth. I can't put them here in front of you, but this I can. So, and my other stuff is DNA tested, and pieces are CAT scanned. I have giants here on my property. They're just laying here, right on top of the surface. So these aren't buried long ago. And one of them is a 3-foot-long fingertip, still has the fingerprints on it. And that was DNA tested. And it was human. It's modern human mitochondrial DNA, which is the mother side. There's a lot of research to be done now based on the evidence that I've discovered all over the world. And it all relates to Velikovsky's work and to these ancient texts. They're all tied together. They all tie together. As they're not myths and just jokes and crazy people writing things to scare little kids. And absolutely not. This has, when I talk about the immortal gods, this is the life, or something happens forever, eternity. You die, yes. There's no question your physical body dies. What happens after that? Is it just end? Is it atheism? You're done? Is case closed? Somebody else just starts growing somewhere else, has nothing to do with you, you're just gone. Well, let's look up what God is all about. What gods are there? What do these gods represent, and what do you follow when you follow a certain type of God? I think I've picked up on my way of thinking now, and you have to study. If you don't study, you're never going to learn anything. You're just going to accept what somebody tells you. I don't do that. It does not work for me. All right, when you talk about God, you usually relate it to some kind of religion. Now, this is Wikipedia, this is God, and they sort of given an overview of all the different types of gods and what the types of religions that relate to these types of gods. And it says this article is about the belief of a supreme being in monotheistic thought. For powerful supernatural beings considered divine or sacred, see deity, that's also something we should look into. For God in specific religions, see conceptions of God. Exactly what did they think in that specific religion? For other uses, just see God as we're going to see now. So let's just take an overview of the whole thing. Monotheistic thought, that's just one God. All right? See here? Monotheistic belief that there is only one deity, all supreme being. Now, God is usually viewed as a supreme being, creator, principal object of the faith. In polytheistic thought, a God is a spirit or being believed to be in control some part of the universe or life, and often worshipped for doing so, like the God of the oceans and the God of the sky and the God of this. And they all were gods. According to these ancient texts, every one of these even love and hate and desire and all of these feelings were personified by a literal creature, which was a god. And you could appeal to that God, please don't rain on me so much, or please do this and that, and they could respond. This is what they wrote. Now, this gets very deep and hard to understand, trust me. But they're talking about gods in control of the universe. They control the weather. They control the this, to that. They're often worshipped for doing so, or something that represents this spirit or being. Belief in the existence of at least one God is called theism. So you believe in God. Some do, some don't. Views regarding God vary considerably. Many notable theologians and philosophers have developed arguments for and against the existence of God. Right? Atheism rejects the belief any deity at all, and there's none. Agnosticism is the belief that the existence of God is unknown or unknowable. Well, let me tell you something about agnosticism. God himself could not know where he came from. I can't imagine him understanding where he came from. Because something had to make him, or somewhere, I know somehow it's got to get back to the beginning of everything, and that's why they call it a Big Bang. It just all happened all accidentally. No, it wasn't, maybe it was an accidental thing, but it ended up being an actual God, not just a bunch of debris expanding out through the universe, and somehow some slime turned into life. But I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think God is knowable by anyone. And even God himself or herself or whoever it is couldn't understand where they came from. All right, some theists view knowledge concerning God. Okay, sorry about that little interruption, but where I'm going with this is that God, I don't think himself would know where he came from, or she, or whoever. And it's often to believe that God is often believed to be the cause of all things, and so is seen as the creator and sustainer, which sustainer means it keeps life going, and the ruler of the universe. Does God as an entity control everything? Or there's another line of thinking I believe here, is God is often thought of as incorporeal and independent of the material creation. In other words, there's just no God sitting there on a throne. He's just independent of the material creation. Now, while pantheism holds God is the universe itself, I'm starting to think pantheism is quite likely. Now, God is sometimes seen as the most benevolent, while deism holds that God is not involved in humanity apart from creation. God created humanity, and off you go, have a nice time. Well, let's think it through a little deeper. All right, this turned me on pretty good here. This is about pantheism, which means that everything is a part of God. They're saying it's this philosophical religious belief that reality, the reality of everything, the universe and the cosmos, are identical to divinity. Everything is divine. And a supreme being or entity, it's all the same thing. Everything there is the supreme entity. The supreme being consists of everything. The physical universe is thus understood as an immanent deity. It's just everything. Still expanding and creating. I imagine, I can't verify that, I don't know why they say that, but it very well could be, which has existed since the beginning of time. Yes, obviously, but where did that start from? Where did the beginning of time start from? Now, the term pantheist designates one who holds both that everything constitutes a unity. Everything there is one. And that this unity is divine, consisting of an all-encompassing, listen to this, manifested God or goddesses. All astronomical objects are thence viewed as part of the sole deity. And what are astronomical objects? They're meteorites and celestial bodies, stellar objects. They're all part of the astronomical body of God, which I agree with that, because they are body parts in space. Now, if you look at science, they're going to say the Big Bang was the moment at 13.8 billion years ago when the universe began as a tiny, dense fireball that exploded. Where did that tiny, dense fireball come from? And why do they automatically assume that? They do because they say the universe is expanding, so it had to blow up because the redshift light is being pulled away from us. No, light is slowing down, coming through the universe. So the universe is just out there. It didn't just start to grow. It's out there, light slows down coming towards us. It's not an expansion thing. Now, they're saying what caused the explosion in the first place is still a mystery. Nobody can possibly ever understand where the universe came from. I can't imagine it's possible. They're talking about the formation of evolution of the universe, the basics of the universe, NASA, universe explored. Nobody has an idea. How was the universe created? Nobody knows. How did the universe begin? Formation of the universe. They're all coming up with these ideas. Big Bang to now in 10 easy steps. Oh my God. Okay, I've been doing this for many, many years now, and most of it was about mud fossils in the beginning, and then they just mushroomed out into virtually everything. But recently, as you have noticed, I'm sure, I have been discussing Velikovsky, Worlds in Collision, the ancient texts about Earth was alive at one time. These are the metal asteroids that are in space. These are hearts that are literally in space. And there's two of them side by side, and they brought a sample back from this one right here. And I can tell you what it is. It is blood. When they analyze it, and they haven't analyzed or given the results yet, but I know 100% for certain it will be blood, and it will have all the same metals. And already they said iron and carbon, and it's organic, but that's as far as they've gone. You know, they want to study it and they make a big thing out of it. I can tell you right now, if all they have to do is look at the scraps that they got from that capsule, and they will find out it is blood. Now, what do the ancient texts say about the earth being alive and about the universe being alive? What about the gods? You see, this is all my recent stuff, and I'd like to talk to this guy here, Neil deGrasse Tyson, about, because he said there is nothing. You die and that's it. You're just dust. Well, what about this? These are meteorites, and that's the paper right there that Yale put out that agrees with all of the things that I've been saying about the ancient mud fossils. Then we go to here, where they're miles-tall giants. How big were these things, and why did they write all these things about this crazy stuff? And it was one group that, I mean, they all had giants. Not a single culture on the face of this earth. Think about this carefully now. Think deeply. There's not a single culture, not one, zero, on the face of the earth that didn't write about gods and giants and dragons. And they also literally all had a flood story and cataclysms. That's not a coincidence. That is not a coincidence. So I am starting to look at all this stuff in a whole new critical eye. How are planets born? Now you have to understand that light is not a constant speed. All right, because that's how they base all of their theories on the Big Bang. Everything's just going out. We all know everything about it. So it's fully understood. No, it is not understood. How are planets born? All right, the light speed slows up and speeds up and slows down. I showed this very clearly, no question whatsoever. And the light coming through all these quantum fields is slowing down. The universe is not popping out like this. All of these things I am showing. I'm showing how the discoveries of biology and Mars rocks. It was all what was written about. Giants in the earth, giants, dragons. All right, giants, Quetzalcoatl, even the giants that are right here down the street from me, giant brains. All right, look at this. Dragons, giants, gods. This is what I have been writing about very seriously. Giants in the earth in those days. You got to come back and look at all these things. And I keep getting more and more information as I keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper into this. But we're controlled by a social media algorithm now that pushes you into a group situation where this is not the way to do business. Everybody should be openly discussing everything, and it just doesn't happen anymore. It's just not the case. The algorithms put you into your own group circle that wants to follow you around, or you want to follow around. And then they say, oh, we're going to customize your experience by not letting you talk to these insane people that are talking about mud fossils and giants and dragons. They're insane people. Just keep them off to the side. And that's what's happened to me. And it happened to Velikovsky. It happens to everybody that brings this kind of stuff up. But I have so much evidence. I mean, I have the evidence. So it no longer is a theoretical discussion. It's a material scientific discussion. And if they will not engage, then it just points to the fact that they're not interested in reality. And that is just what I found. In the last 10 years, zero. And I go back longer than that, but in the last 10 years, I've been very, very pushy, and I got all my DNA tests done, the CAT scans, I got specimens, I got chemistry, I got anatomy, I got all that stuff done. And they still refuse to engage. That tells you what we're dealing with here. And why are they so opposed to this? Is there some other agenda? I'm not a conspiratorial type of person. I don't believe in that stuff. But I do understand that they are afraid for their status. And it's leading them to be perfectly happy, deluded. Because they're getting paid every day and their status is good. And I went to Yale, I went to Harvard, I went to here and there. Those are the people that won't talk. They refuse to talk. Because they realize, even the people with the light experiments, the national laboratories and all that stuff, they don't want to discuss it either, because this is invasive and destructive to people's careers. But it won't be if they embrace it and everybody starts to talk about it and just keep going the way they're going, but embrace these ideas. Don't say, I don't want to talk about them because they're going to make me look silly. You look silly by not talking about them. That's the problem. And it really is. It's starting to be very, very... It's almost unbelievable that this can be so denied for so long with so much evidence. And all I hear every day, oh, we wish we knew where we came from, origin of man, we're looking, we're studying, we're doing everything you can imagine, how hard we're working. Well, that's not what I find. And nobody will contact me back when I reach out with my evidence. That tells me exactly that nobody's interested in the reality. And all of this stuff was written about, and I can quote you about. It's just this about there'll be false teachers among you, and they will exploit you with tales they have concocted. I'm serious. It's the exact words. There was false prophets then, and there will be false teachers among you. that will exploit you with tales they have concocted, and their destruction does not sleep. They concocted stories to deceive you. Now, who exactly they're talking about, which teachers, the religious teachers? I see all the teachers. I see everyone that's supposed to be doing their job is not doing their job. That's what I see. Well, I could be wrong, but until they start talking, I don't know if they are hearing me or they just don't care. I can't believe they're not hearing me. I'm sending it to all of their contact information. And I've sent to new magazines and all kinds of political people, everybody. Nobody cares. Or nobody's responded. Even I sent my stuff to the Native American Indian tribes, saying I will donate stuff that backs up your stories, and I can support your stories with information. I've never had not one word back from any of them. So it's right across the board. And and you keep hearing, we want this, we want to hear that, we want to know about this. And so what we need to do is have like an open forum for people that are interested. Because the rest of the people, if they're not interested, I'm not interested either. I want the people that are interested I can learn something from. Because I don't know much about Islam. Now, it did say in the Kolbrin Bible, I think it said there was going to be a major problem between Islam and I guess whatever the rest of the world was, because I don't think Christianity was even there back then, because it was 3,600 years ago. Christ hadn't come yet. So did they foresee that back then, the coming of Christ, and then some two sets of gods wanting to fight each other? I'm confused at this point. However, I'm going to tell you right now, just so I give you my perspective, I'm not going to hide anything. I don't hide. I am saying in my own mind, and I could be wrong, but I believe Christ was literally the Son of God, the real God, the good God, who, in my mind right now, I'm pointing towards the actual sun, the luminous sun, as God, the real God. And he appointed 600 stars, which are angels basically, 600 angels, to look over his creation of our solar system. And he created it out of the chaos and all that stuff. And it's all written about how he created it. And then he put 600 watchers in control to sort of help the thing along. And instead, 200 of them, led by Zeus, who was the god of gods, the lower gods. Zeus was that god that controlled all the lower gods. And he was the one that ruled with a rod of iron, and he was a tough guy. And he was the one that said, let's all get together. We were supposed to just keep an eye on these people, but boy, I'll tell you, the chicks look hot. Let's go down there and have a party. We can change ourselves into anything we want. Let's make ourselves really hot-looking guys. We'll go down there and we'll just have a party. And 200 of them says, okay, we'll go with you. And they all signed a pact, and then they went down and they lived on Mount Olympus, which was the home of the gods, and they all hang around there and they all partied up there, and then the rest is history, literally. Okay, my friends, as you know, I study all the texts, and I have a lot of people say, oh, you can't read that stuff, that's going to cloud your mind. No, your mind is clouded if you stay away from everything. If you read everything and then you make your own determination, then your mind is not clouded. My mind is not clouded. 56. This is from the Nag Hammadi text. And these are the spoken words that Jesus actually spoke. And he told his scribe, who was doubting Thomas, to write it down while he was alive. And Jesus said, whoever has come to understand the world has found only a corpse. He's right. I agree with that 100%. And listen to this. Number 50, Jesus said, if they say to you, where did you come from? Say to them, we came from the light. All right, the light. Now think about this carefully. The place where the light came into being on its own accord, it just all of a sudden it got bright. Well, where does that come from? The sun. Where did they come from? Where did you come from? We came from the light, the place where the light came into being on its own accord and established itself and became manifest through their image. I'm not sure what that means, but light turned into us, so I guess it can be manifest through the image of God. If they say to you, is it you? Here's what you say. Say, we are its children. So we are the children of light. And we are the elect of the living Father. What does that mean? The elect, the selected of the living Father to become creatures. If they ask you, what is the sign of your Father in you? You say to them, it is movement and repose. And that is exactly what light does. It's intense, it causes energy, it causes heat, it causes light, it causes all those things. And it forces electrons into things. And then sometimes it's just as quiet as can be, which is repose. Repose is just lack of movement, basically. And that's what happens to light after its movement phase is over. It becomes the cosmic radio background, which is the soup of the universe. This is an absolutely certainty. Your movement and repose. And it starts out way up here. Again, Nag Hammadi text. And again, you can read everything you can read. If you don't like it, you will read something else. I read everything. Now he says, Jesus said, let him who seeks continue seeking till he finds. When he finds, he will become troubled. When you find out what the real world is, you're going to be troubled. If you're not, something wrong with your trouble mechanism. When he becomes troubled, he will be astonished. And if you're not astonished by the things that I've been showing you, boy, I don't know how you can get astonished. And he will rule over the all, whatever that means. And if you understand the sayings of this, and you understand the meaning of this stuff, you will not experience death. This is what it says. And these were supposed to be the secret sayings which living Jesus spoke, and Judas Didymus Thomas wrote down, being his scribe. And there's 113 or 114 sayings there, and they are, well, here's the easy stuff. Jesus said, recognize what's in your sight. That's what's hidden from you will become plain to you, for there is nothing hidden which will not become manifest. Everything there is going to all of a sudden open up, and it's opening up right now. And here he says right here, here's another one. His disciple questioned him and said to him, do you want us to fast? He said, how shall we pray? Shall we give alms? What diet should we observe? And Jesus said, do not tell lies. Right? Don't lie. And do not do what you hate. Don't do the things that you know that you shouldn't be doing. And for all things are plain in the sight of heaven. For nothing hidden will not become manifest, and nothing covered will remain without becoming uncovered. And everything's being uncovered now, and we're starting to understand what the whole reality of the thing is. Jesus said he came to cast fire upon the world, and see, I am guarding it until it blazes. Well, Jesus, I'm going to tell you right now, my friend, it is blazing. And there is people that can accept, and there is people that cannot accept. And the fire, she is started. I'm telling you, this stuff, it just absolutely blows my mind when I read it, now understanding a little more than I did way back then. Jesus said to his disciples, compare me to someone and tell me who I am like. So he's asking them a question. Simon Peter said, you are like a righteous angel. Matthew said, you are like a wise philosopher. Thomas said, Master, my mouth, and he called him Master, my mouth is wholly incapable of saying whom you are like. So Jesus said to Thomas, He said, I am not your master. Because you have drunk, you have become intoxicated from the bubbling spring which I have measured out to you, the knowledge. And he took him and withdrew and told him 3 things. All right, so he took him aside, nobody else can hear. When Thomas returned to his companions, they asked him, what did Jesus say? What did he just tell you? Thomas said to them, if I tell you even one of the things which he told me, you will pick up stones, throw them at me, and guess what then will happen is a fire will come out of those stones and burn you up, because you will see him as being like a heretic and deciding we got to kill this guy because he's saying terrible, terrible things. But those things were true, so the stones are going to burn up the people that threw them. And now listen to this. This one here, these are blowing my mind up. Something terrible. He's talking about what comes out of your mouth defiles you, not what goes into your mouth. And then he says here, Jesus said, men think perhaps that it is peace which I have come to cast upon the world. They do not know that it is dissension which I have come to cast upon earth. Fire, sword, and war. That's a little scary. For there will be 5 in a house. 3 will be against 2, and 2 against 3. The father against the son, and the son against the father, and they will stand solitary. Now, I have found that this new knowledge has put people, literally divided families, and caused, I know of at least divorce from, not being able to accept each other in this new reality, this new understanding. And I fully understand it because it was real close for me. Jesus said, I shall give you what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no hand has touched, and what has never even occurred to the human mind. Mudfossils. And then they want to know how everything's going to end. And he says, have you discovered then the beginning, that you are looking for the end? For where the beginning is, there will be the end. You'll understand it if you understand the beginning. Blessed is he who will take his place in the beginning. He will know the end and will not experience death. You got to start from the beginning to know the end, because the beginning, we've been taught, is not the beginning that it was real. And it goes on. I mean, you got to try to understand these things, but they don't make sense in any way whatsoever until you looking through Mudfossil eyes. And then they still don't make a whole lot of sense. I'm telling you, you really got to do some digging in this stuff. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up sort of, but I want to show you some last things for you to think about as we progress through this, because there's a lot to discuss, and I need to get a lot of takes on a lot of different religions, what they saw in their ancient texts. Okay, so don't forget, the Kolbrin Bible supports a lot of things I'm talking about, and the Destroyer and the Frightener, and it looks to me like these 2 things may have something to do with each other, as that Venus looks like it's about to give birth. I showed this the other day in a video, and it really does look close. And Nibiru could be coming back very soon, because it's supposedly every 3,600 years it comes by. And this Bible is 3,600 years ago, talking about the Destroyer and the Frightener had just come and destroyed the earth. And they were coming out of and writing these stories down. And it says it will, when it just appears again, apparently, well, at this time it appeared and it boiled the seas. And I think I already went all through this stuff. But the Kolbrin Bible is going to be something we want to look at. And they're talking about Revelations versus the Kolbrin Bible. And I have things to say about Revelations as well. I'll tell you, this would be a fabulous discussion to have on every religion. God, what is God to you? God to me, what is it? Conceptions of what God is. And when you start looking into all the different religions, everybody's got their own sort of God. Now, they're always very, very powerful, and they're all different, and they all go back to, there's not a single culture on earth that doesn't have a God except academia, which is a culture. Trust me, that is a culture, and they have no God, and they have no giants, and they have no dragons. They have none of that stuff. It's not allowed in that culture. Now, I show the truth, and we can investigate the truth about God and about the gods, because there was more than one, and there was big God. The big God, I believe, at this point in time, I'm going to go with God being the sun, and then everything flowed down from that, and Jupiter, being the next giant planet, became the God selected to rule over this solar system, and he went bad. And then it became a fight back and forth. All kinds of evil happened. And then the sun, the bright, glowing sun, sent his son, Jesus, to tell people, watch out, we got a problem here. There's a big fight going on between me and the guy that you think is God. I am really the God. Tell them that you come from the light, from the place where the light comes of its own accord. And that's the only place there is the sun. So at this point, that's what I'm going with. But let me show you, I'm going to show you a selection of the things that we will be looking into. Okay, I am just going to cut right to the chase here about Typhon, the one that is in the desert. In size and strength, he surpassed all the offspring of earth. His thighs were human, and so prodigious he was, he out-topped all the mountains. His head often brushed the stars. And one of his hands and the other east from them projected 100 dragon's heads. From the thighs downward he had huge coils of vipers, which when drawn out reached to his very head, emitted a loud hissing. His body was all winged, unkempt, hair streamed on the wind. Whoops, hold on. All right, this is a very convoluted story, but this is about Earth being a literal creature, which is exactly what Jesus said. He says it is now a corpse, and the Earth was a literal creature giving birth to giants and monsters. Now, listen to what happened at the end. The gods wanted to kill all the giants. So here's what happened. Hermes, wearing the helmet of Hades, slew Hippolytus in the fight, and Artemis slew Gratian, and the Fates, fighting with brazier clubs, killed Agarus and Thoas. The other giants, all right, so these were the giants which were the children of Earth, Gaia. The other giants, Zeus killed. He smote them and destroyed with his thunderbolts, and all of them Hercules shot with arrows as they were dying. So Earth's children are the giants, and Zeus killed them all, working with the other gods. Him and the other gods killed her children. So when the gods, including Zeus, had overcome the giants and killed them all, Earth still was turned totally enraged, and had intercourse, literally intercourse, with Tartarus, and brought forth Typhon. That is the dragon. The dragon came to kill all of the gods. And he attacked the gods, and he went after them, and so great was Typhon, he hurled kindled rocks, and he made for the very heavens, with hissing and shouts, spouting a great jet of fire from his mouth. I'll show you that. When the gods saw him rushing at heaven, they made for Egypt in flight. Being pursued, they changed their forms into those of animals. All right, so the gods themselves were scared of Typhon, because he was there to kill them, because they killed Earth's giant children. Now, Zeus pelted Typhon at a distance, and thunderbolts struck him down, and so forth. Now, it gets very, very detailed after that, but let me show you Typhon. If you've been following me, you've seen this 100 zillion times. But here's Typhon, and they commemorated it on these coins, and everybody's everywhere. They commemorated it up here too. So here's Typhon. He's a gigantic dragon, runs a whole of North Africa. And here's him spitting this fire out at the fish. And here he is not highlighted. But that's his throat. And you can come up here on in Google. You got Google Earth. Come up and look at it. Now, here he is on top of the fish. And here he is. That was his head I was showing. That's all the stuff he's spitting down at this gigantic fish. It's a gigantic fish. If you come up here and look at it, there's no way you can miss it. And he runs all the way across North Africa. And here's his thighs of a human. That's all they said about him being human was his thighs. And then these are the great flared coils. And they are, if you look at them, they're nothing more than like ostrich leather. So here we had the dragon. They commemorated this, and they didn't know what he looked like. They have a human head on it, and he's attacking the fish. And then another one shows, what do we got here? They got some horse-headed dragon attacking the fish. And then over here, there's a different one. It looks like he's riding through here with a chariot or something. And all his tentacles are attacking the fish. And he's, I don't know. Those are what they're showing. And then this is pottery showing him with a human head, but having the coils and all that stuff. All of these things were written about, and everybody talked about them in history. But because it became so hard to believe as time goes on and the stories sort of take on a little flavor and the people start to dismiss them and get nasty about it, and they get very nasty when you bring up these, like the things I do, they get very nasty, and people are being blocked and all kinds of, things are happening. It's very hard to believe how nasty people get when you show them the evidence to support your side of things, which is in the ancient text. This is not my making anything up. You can go up on Google Earth in North Africa. There it is right there. It's all in North Africa. There's nothing hidden here. And I have it all on my YouTube channel over and over and over. That's where you should go up and do some studying there, because I try to make it as easy to understand as possible. So anyway, we're going to be looking into the Theogony and Hesiod, and he wrote Theogony and Works and Days, and this was all about what life was like with the early Greeks and the gods. When he was there writing when it appears that Zeus was still around, because his daughters, the Muses, had him write all that story. So we're going to look into that one. We're going to look into Apollodorus, the whole library of Apollodorus, and this is stunning, stunning stuff. And it's deep. It goes right, the birth of Zeus, the war of the Titans, the gods, the Olympian gods, Prometheus, who created mankind, Deucalion, his son Noah, the flood, the giants, Typhon, on and on and on. This is serious, serious stuff. And then we're going to look at everything else we can find about these ancient texts. And the Gospel of Thomas is another one. I showed you some of the clips out of this one. But this was just discovered in 1945. Same thing with the Dead Sea Scrolls, pretty recent too. And it seems like there's an unveiling happening. That's all I can take out of this. Because everything I have found, nobody's ever even considered it. Who would ever consider these giants the size they are? I mean, it's like Enoch said, 2.5 miles tall. It's not a big stretch. The one in North Africa, the dragon, is 1,100 miles long. Quetzalcoatl on the East Coast is, I think, 1,300 miles long. And these were creatures that were thrown to earth by coming out of the heavens. It appears to me, I don't see how they could possibly live on earth as the way it is now. Earth is a round globe now. It's not a flat plate of... I can't account for how they're here or where they come from. It just was stated that Typhon was supposed to attack the gods, and that's what he was doing, and he ended up dead in the desert. So there's so much to look into here. I don't know what else to say about it other than that we got to start looking into it. And the Iceland volcano, this is... I've been looking into this too, and this is not an explosive volcano, I don't think. It'll ooze. I think it's going to ooze, and it might ooze a lot, but I don't think so. I think it's going to subside after a while, but it's not a place you'd want to live. I'm not saying it's a good place or anything. I'm just saying that I think it's a body part, and I think it's a heart. And that whole region there should have plumbing that'll let it evacuate out. That's why they're hearing all these earthquakes. They're trying to break through some of that way to get out the pressure to be relieved underneath through these tubing. That's the way I'm thinking, because they had thousands of earthquakes. Now they got dozens, apparently, way, way, way down from what they originally had. And that's because they had so much pressure, it's being relieved underground through these arteries and veins. I'm not kidding you. The earth is nothing but a creature, and or a bunch of creatures. And Jesus also said that in the Gospel of Thomas. I think it was number 80 or something. Hold on. I told you 56. He said it was a corpse. Number 8, he says, he who recognizes the world has found the body. All right, and these are bodies all over the world. Who has found the body is superior to the world. I don't know what that means, but it's a lot of these things that were stated by Jesus and by all the ancient texts need to be reconsidered now. Absolutely reconsidered. When you look at this, how can you possibly not reconsider it? Looking at the mud fossils and the flood being spoken about and being real, and I mean, it's just too much for the average human mind to accept or even examine. It's too much for the human mind to want to examine, because if they see it as being what it is, it's a whole new way of life, and to me, it made a major change on my life. But some people will see this and just say, "Oh, that's nice. Have a nice day," and that's what I see most of the time, because it's invasive. It's jarring, as somebody told me. I never heard that before. She says, your work is interesting, but it is jarring. Yes, it is. And, it's not made to make anybody feel one way or the other, or to hurt anybody's anything. It's here to present reality. And God himself, in one of the ancient texts, said, "I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth." All right, I'm just here to make God happy. And I'm serious about that. Because if you make God happy, I think He's going to make you happy. And eternity is a very, very, very long time to be unhappy. That's the way I'm looking at things. All right, thank you, my friends. I love you all. And God bless you all. And thank you, Jesus, for doing what you're doing here. I hope this all works out, because I did some things I'm not real proud of. So I hope you got some forgiveness for Roger. All right, I love you all. And I'm just going to keep talking about it until people start paying attention to it. And if it makes any difference in your life, that's fine. If it doesn't, not my problem. All right? Thanks. We'll talk. And we should get a podcast going where we can interact, and people can ask me questions, because I have a lot of information on this, and I can ask questions of people that have a lot of information on their view of whatever their view of eternity is and our ancient past. We could have some very interesting conversations, but I can't do this. I need somebody to host it and be the moderator and do all that stuff, and I just talk. I don't mind doing that. I like to be able to share my screen and talk, that's all. All right, once again, we will continue this. All right, I love you all. Bye. Okay, again, as you know, most of my work is based on trying to confirm Immanuel Velikovsky's claims in these ancient texts about giants and dragons and the flood and all this. And 100% of the ancient texts deal with these topics, 100%. So he wrote this book, Worlds in Collision, and here's what the topics are. All right, it's the Worlds in Collision, History, Ancient Antiquity, Years and Ages, Cosmos, Cataclysm, Catastrophism, the Iliad, the Odyssey, Mythology, Mars, Venus, Earth, planets, planetary catastrophes, celestial comets, ice ages, the mammoths, oceans, naphtha, Mount Sinai, all of these things, the sun ages, the world ages, all of these things, Greek mythology, morning star, and all of these things are important. Now here's what they're saying about Worlds in Collision. It's just this long. Now listen. Worlds in Collision was the first book written by Immanuel Velikovsky, published on April 1950 by Macmillan Publishers. Immanuel Velikovsky, 1950, Worlds in Collision, and it is the number and all that. Velikovsky's most criticized and controversial work was an instant New York Times bestseller, #1, topping the charts for 11 weeks while being in the top 20 for 27 straight weeks. Now, and being attacked all the time. Worlds in Collision in Macmillan's catalogs. Now, the 20 weeks at the top stated by Jurgens in the Velikovsky affair, which talks about how he was treated so unfairly, is incorrect. Well, who knows? See Worlds in Collision as bestseller, so you can look into that. But it was 11 weeks in a row as #1. Now, but they attacked him after that just continuously and made, the guy's an idiot. If you buy this book, you're a crazy person. So anyway, despite the popularity, overwhelming rejection of its thesis by the scientific community, which is academia, led Macmillan to stop publishing the book. They said, no, we're going to take it off the bookshelves. And it was transferred to another book, Doubleday, within 2 months after that. But in the meantime, he had already been destroyed, and the book was pulled, and he bowed down, or Macmillan bowed down to the academics. And then Velikovsky went on to support everything he said, and all of the future research supported everything that he said about the temperature of Venus and all of the stories about it. And every culture on Earth had basically the same story. And this is what Velikovsky presented as evidence, documentation from these different texts. And that's all he had. Now I have some pretty solid, serious evidence that says these ancient myth stories were not myths. They were based on giants, they were based on dragons, they were based on events that caused cataclysms. So again, there's so much to study on this, and I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to feel pretty confident that I'm understanding how these unexplained things can be worked with when you understand, first of all, electron flood theory, about the universe not expanding, it's the light slowing down, coming through all these magnetic fields. And secondly, to understand the mud fossils, and that everything's laying on the top of the earth. This is not 540 million years ago. All of these ancient texts have to be considered now. They've been just laughed at. It's totally ignored, like they just didn't even exist. I'm serious. It boggles my mind now that I think about it. There's not one single culture on Earth didn't have the same story, basically. They all had the same story. And if you look at it, if you study it, if you don't study it, well, it's just nonsense. But if you study it, you say, whoa, ooh, like, you can't understand something if you don't study it, if you don't look into it. And I make a presentation very simple to understand. My stuff is not hard to understand. It's very simple stuff. But you have to do a little digging here and there, which is what I've been doing. So take it or leave it. I love you. Thank you.